Hey, welcome back to my channel, Crafty Mama of Two. Today we are filling one of our new garden beds. One of my friends was going through her in-laws' houses and her grandmother's house and found the stock tank and another stock tank that's even bigger and asked if I wanted it. And of course, I said yes. And she was like, "Are you sure? Because there's holes in the bottom." And I said, "That's perfect. It's great for drainage." So I was able to get it up on the trailer, Chris and I were, and we got it in place. And now the boys and I are just kind of doing a hugelkultur method, but also simply just saving space in, well, I guess you can't really say we're saving space. We're saving soil. So you can see that we're putting in sticks, we're putting in pallet wood. It is only heat treated wood. We did not put in any of the chemical treated pallet wood that we have. But over in where our seating area is going to be in the garden, we had a whole bunch of pallet wood that we just couldn't use for any other projects. And so we went ahead and put those in the stock barrel or the stock tank and then topped it off with some tumbleweeds and some of our bigger sticks and stuff that we had on the property. And so we didn't even break them down. I know eventually that's going to settle really bad, but to get it through this first year, this is what we've done with pretty much all of our beds. We haven't necessarily used pallet wood. We have in some, but most of the time we use sticks or bigger logs, basically. And eventually it'll break down and the dirt will settle, and that's fine. It'll settle in between, and then we usually have a compost day at one of our local feed yards that's composted the cow manure throughout the entire year. And we go and get, use mineral buckets, and we go and get 6, 12, 18 of those at a time. And then we top all of our beds off. It's taken us, we've lived at this house now for almost 4 years. And so it's taken us 3 years just to get our first few beds to stay pretty much where they need to be, minus a little bit of the wind erosion and rain erosion that we expect. But you want it to kind of lower as the season goes, or at least I do, because then I can add the compost on top and it's going to add the nutrients naturally, as opposed to having to use chemical additives. So you can see here, we're just adding in anything that we find over in our compost bin. It looks like it's really high, but it's really not. So while the boys were finishing that, I decided that it was time to get some of my greens planted. In a previous video, I showed how I had started out some Brussels sprouts and such, and I'm finally getting those into the ground, or into the beds. This bed has onions planted in it, and so I'm just planting the greens around it, because when the greens bolt, then the onions will be big enough that they can kind of take over and help with weed coverage. Of course, Vaughn was super excited to be able to help. I told him that he would be able to water, and he was stoked about that. And he wanted to make sure that you guys saw his new glasses, because he got purple glasses and they're really, really flexible, so he doesn't have to worry about them bending or breaking or anything like that. So right now he's picking up the clippings that I had from like the elderberry bush and the goji bushes and stuff and getting those in the other bed while I'm finishing planting. And then here in just a few seconds, you're going to see him hand water our beds. This was early enough in the season that we didn't have our hose hooked up. And while I could have hooked it up for this instance, I had only planted out a couple of beds at this point, so there wasn't really any point. And right on cue, there he is. He was so super excited to be able to help me in the garden. We didn't do a garden last year, like I said in a few other videos. And so both boys are super excited to get out there and start getting our hands dirty and really start growing things like we did the last couple of years. So I went a little fast with this. I had some radicchio, I had some just regular leaf lettuce, I had some dinosaur kale, and some parsley, I think is the majority of what I put out in these blue buckets. And these are the mineral buckets that I use also. We keep some extra on hand just empty, and that's what we use to put our compost when we're weeding big sections, as well as what we take to the compost day at the feed yard, and we just fill them up and then dump it into our driveway, and then we can pull from there. Here I'm just pulling off some of the dead parts basically before I put it in there so that they're not trying to suck up the nutrients. I love this little spade that I got. I got it at Walmart. It was in a pack with the rake and a pair of pruners for like $3, and it's all metal. It's really nice and sturdy. So I'm just putting 4 or 5 plants in each blue bucket, and then we'll water these in really good. And since it's not so hot, we don't need water every day. I do a deep water method, and so I only have to water about once or twice a week. Alright, we're on our last bed, and that's going to be the end of this video. If you like this kind of content, there's going to be more educational stuff coming out. Make sure you subscribe and like this, and if you have anything that you want to suggest for a video, comment down below. Thanks, guys!